Good afternoon. How are you today? Again, I had to appear in court and stuff like that, so getting in the way of my walk. And I'm talking to you about three-ish. At about 3:30, the Congress is going to begin talking about the Meadows contempt charge, and that'll be pretty interesting. And I'll talk about that in a moment, I suppose. First up, I'd like to talk about public enemy number one to voting rights, to the bill that the Build Better bill, and a whole number of other things, none other than Mr. Manchin. And it won't surprise anyone that it turns out that he has interest in a coal company. And what it does is it takes coal from abandoned mines, which are of a worse grade of coal, causing higher air pollution, and that coal is sold to a power plant in West Virginia. Now, Manchin has said in the past that it's in a blind trust and he doesn't know what they're doing and he assumes they're doing the right thing. But the reports of the funds that he derives from this business that he reports apparently is not complete, shall we say. Even without messing around with the figures from a coal plant and using coal, which is particularly offensive to anybody's policies of environmental intelligence, if you will. Let's call it EI instead of emotional intelligence. You'd say this is terrible. And Democrats put him in charge of the Energy Committee. I mean, and I assume he got that job because he's been leaning on them because his vote is so essential for the things that are going on. And the latest from Manchin is that he thinks that the package back in the Senate is too dear, too precious, too high. So he's opposed to that. In another category, Governor Beshear in Kentucky, he's got his hands full with an emergency there. We've been reading about it. The stories are terrible. There was one story in which a family went to another family's place miles away where they had a basement, and they hid in the basement through the storm. When they came back, their house was demolished, but also neighbors' houses were demolished and they had no place to go. And one fellow was hurled out of his house into a field and he was seen there dead, as were other people seen dead when they returned. So such is the occasion of chance in a tornado by which some people live and others die unnecessarily, wrongly. When I say wrongly, I'm thinking if we had started years ago to do anything about global warming, we wouldn't have created this weather system of hot air from the south and cold from the north, creating a storm system that became these historically unique tornadoes. Now, another aspect of this is that the good news is there are funds coming from the federal government that's going to help the people. Now, the Democratic governor has no trouble accepting it, and he would be the last person in the world to think that this was socialistic. And of all the Republicans who are affected by this storm that traveled at 70 miles an hour and a width of 250 miles, they probably don't think about it being socialistic, that perhaps it gives them a home or some way to recover from this event. But the Republicans, they speak this all the time. And you haven't seen them out there publicly talking about the funds. But you can be sure McConnell's talking about the funds. And is he a crazy liberal? I don't think so. It used to be good governance to do what was right for the people, to fulfill that aspect of the Constitution that says to promote the general welfare. But we have a sickness in America. We have a cancer in America. And it has to do with our policy positions. And the Republican Party, if you may remember, had no platform in the last election. And I'm sure that's a factor why people voted against Trump, in addition to all the other reasons that we don't have to think of. Finally, in this category, I heard somebody on the air, whom I respect and whom I like, say that he wasn't sure that, Meadows could be prosecuted. Well, damn, yes, he could be. And the outline I would give, if you haven't heard any of this on TV. And I think it's been a stellar performance by the committee. And I'm so glad that Cheney is on this committee, because she's brought to bear an issue that she cares about the way people Raskin and Schiff and others on the committee do. And it is that he brought this information to the Hill. And then I get the feeling that despite what his lawyer advised him to do, Trump sat on him and said, stop this. Not just because of the book and because of whatever COVID Trump had and when he had it. We don't expect anything of him. But because this information was damning of the participation of Trump and his co-conspirators, particularly, and the best summary, of course, is the PowerPoint. And last evening, people read excerpts from the materials they got. And so what is contemptuous? That now he won't sit down and talk about the significance of these things, when he got it, from whom he spoke with, and he is not giving the rest of the documents. That's contempt. That is a failure to produce, a failure to testify, and should be prosecuted for that. But I've heard people on the air say things like, oh, I don't know, I don't like them pulling out things that specifically address his misconduct. But there's a bigger issue here, and I know that may be hard to believe. And the bigger issue is that what Meadows did is not the misdemeanor contempt charge. It is a larger conspiracy, the seditious conspiracy to overthrow our government in violations of the law and the Constitution, of the traditions of the House and the Senate, and to be walking around and nobody cares about it. And why? Why isn't it that in January, a grand jury wasn't sworn and prosecutors weren't assigned to investigate this crime, which is out there for all of us to see? That's unacceptable. And I don't want to get Meadows. I want to get Trump. They did it for Trump. They did it so he could be returned to office. He had the highest motive. And by persuasion or radical behavior or cultish behavior, they all committed a crime. People in the West Wing, people outside government, people in our intelligence network, people apparently in our armed services, and senators and congresspeople on the Hill. All of them should be made to reckon for it, pay for it, be prosecuted for it, be in the grand jury. And we know they tried to take over our government. Are we going to wait until they do it the next time? Are we going to wait until somebody is killed? I don't think so. I don't think we should. That's not America. That's not the land of the free and the home of the brave. So, yes, Meadows, when you hear this, hopefully the Congress will have voted that he should be prosecuted for contempt. But the next chapter is to wake up Sleepy over the Department of Justice and have him do his damn job. This is no time to ignore the enforcement of the law. This is a time in American history in which if we don't insist upon the enforcement of the law, of the criminal law, don't investigate and prosecute the people who tried to bring down our government, it will be written across the world that America failed its promise in 1787 to have a republic that it was going to keep, and not to have cowards fail to do their job to protect us. So, that's all I got to say today. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.